Now that we are just 2 days from Selection Sunday, I wanted to make another bracketology update where we take a look at the bracket right now as it stands and the bubble picture to see who is in and who is out. But before we jump into it, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. But now, let's get into it. And we're going to start off on ESPN, taking a look at Joe Lunardi's updated bracketology, but we will be looking at a few other bracketology sites as well. But looking first at ESPN, we have Duke as our top overall seed, which is no surprise. They're still the #1 seed, even after barely beating Florida State in their first game of the ACC tournament. Then we have SMU, who has now moved into the last team in the tourney for ESPN. And then Oklahoma looks to have jumped Auburn and is now the first team out after getting back-to-back wins in the SEC tourney, including their most recent blowout win of Texas A&M. So they do have a chance to keep playing their way into the bracket. But jumping into the actual bracket, we still see Duke and Michigan as our #1 seeds. If Duke loses in the ACC tournament and Michigan doesn't lose in the Big Ten, I do believe the Wolverines will jump them, even though Duke has the head-to-head win. Then we have Georgia, who fell to an 8 seed after that surprising loss to Ole Miss, and that could be a team that could be a bid thief if they were somehow able to win the SEC tournament. Then we have Utah State, currently at an 8, but could move to a 7 with winning the Mountain West, and they're currently in the semifinals of that tournament. Then we have Iowa and TCU, both as 9 seeds right now, even after their losses in their conference tournaments. Arkansas and Tennessee are listed as 5 seeds, but I think both of these teams have potential to get to a 4 seed if either one of them are able to win the SEC tournament. Purdue listed as a 4 seed, but could have potential to get back to a 3 seed because they did recently get dropped from there. Louisville right now is a 6 seed, and they could drop, but I don't think so. I think the Cardinals will come in as a 6 seed on Selection Sunday. Missouri and VCU are 11 seeds, and they're in the play-in game as of now, so both of these teams really hoping that they stay in the bracket. VCU might need to win a couple of games in order to do so. Miami, Ohio comes in as an 11 seed, but right now they are an auto bid, even with their surprising loss in the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament, but they are 31-1. I just don't think you can leave this team out, and I like that ESPN still has them outside of Dayton, so not having to play in the first 4. Then we have Illinois as the 3 seed. They're one of the few teams I believe could get themselves back to the 2 line with a good performance in the Big Ten tourney, and if some of the other 2 seeds lose early. Kentucky stays as a 7 seed after that clutch win against Missouri. You have Miami, who's up to a 7 seed now with their win over Louisville, and could realistically see this team winning the ACC with how good they're playing right now, and with Duke struggling a bit with those injuries to Patrick Ngungba and Caleb Foster. And Miami also might be able to make it to a 6 seed, but we'll just have to wait and see with how the ACC tournament plays out. UCF is up to a 10 seed with some of the movement around them. You have Santa Clara, that's a 10 seed as well. So what they did in the WCC tournament seems to have played them safely into the bracket. Iowa State is a 2 seed. I think they're one of the teams that could drop to a 3 seed if they lose in the Big 12 semifinals, but they had a dominant win against Texas Tech in the quarterfinals of that one. Then you have UConn as a 2 seed now, so Florida listed as the other 1 seed. UConn might be the only team, though, that can get to the 1 seed line if Florida does lose in the SEC tournament. Florida and Arizona are obviously our other 1 seeds as expected right now. Then you have Ohio State and UCLA both listed as 8 seeds. And both of these teams were on the bubble just a few weeks ago, but have played themselves all the way up to an 8 seed with how they've been doing. You have Clemson as a 9 seed, and they can move even higher if they're able to get another win in the ACC tournament after that upset over North Carolina in the quarterfinal. Texas A&M as a 9 seed for ESPN still. I'm a bit surprised the Aggies stayed there after that blowout loss to Oklahoma in the SEC tournament. Virginia, we have as a 4 seed. They have a chance of getting to the 3 line with winning the ACC, and maybe just making the finals might be enough, depending on how some of those other 3 seeds do. North Carolina as a 6 seed. I think this is a team that is susceptible to maybe dropping to a 7 seed when the bracket is released, and I'm really curious to see if the Caleb Wilson injury will impact their seeding at all. I do want to call out South Florida as well, who is now an 11 seed, projected to win the American, but this is a team that could do some damage come the NCAA tournament. Texas dropped to an 11 seed and is now in the bubble and projected to be in the first 4 against an SMU team that has been in the bubble since their surprising loss early in the ACC tournament. You have Nebraska and Gonzaga, both listed as 3 seeds. I feel like they're pretty solid here. Maybe could be 4 seeds, but should be in that range come Selection Sunday. St. Mary's and Villanova both as 7 seeds feel a little susceptible to me, and I think they could drop to that 8-9 game after their early losses in their conference tournaments. And then Houston and Michigan rounded out as the final 2 seeds, and they feel pretty safe to me, should end up there come Selection Sunday as well. But then moving to the bubble, our last 4 byes currently are NC State, Santa Clara, UCF, and Miami, Ohio. NC State, I believe, should be in, but Will Wade and the Wolfpack definitely struggled down the stretch. Santa Clara, they seem to have played themselves well into the field as well, with making it to the WCC championship. UCF had that big comeback win against Cincinnati, which I believe saved them and their chances of making the bracket. And then Miami, Ohio, the biggest question for me is whether or not they will end up in Dayton for the first 4. I truly believe they will be in the bracket come Selection Sunday as well. For the last 4 in, it's VCU, Missouri, SMU, and Texas. So VCU needs to win a game or maybe even 2 in the A-10 tournament to solidify their spot. Missouri is just sitting and waiting to see if they can get in the bracket after their close loss to Kentucky in the SEC tournament. SMU really needed to pull out a win over Louisville, and if they did, they would have been in the bracket for sure to me. And then Texas, listed here as the last team in the bracket, but in the bracket watch section, it was SMU, but it looks like Texas could be that team with the bad loss that they took to Ole Miss in the first round of the SEC tournament. Our first 4 out is Oklahoma, Auburn, Indiana, and New Mexico. Oklahoma right now might be the hottest team in the country, coming off of back-to-back wins in the SEC tournament, including that blowout of Texas A&M. And if they can somehow get a win over Arkansas, they are probably going to be in the field and would knock out their rival Texas in the process with what ESPN has currently. Auburn right now feels like they had to get that win over Tennessee in order to get in, and they just let it slip away because they were leading for a little bit. Indiana's loss in the first round of the Big Ten tournament did them no favors and are most likely out unless their name brand somehow gets them in. And then you have New Mexico, who is now in the Mountain West semifinals, and they are actually playing San Diego State, who is the next team in the next 4 out section for a spot in the Mountain West championship. And I believe whoever wins that game has a shot at getting in, but whoever loses is definitely going to be out. But then for our next 4 out, it's San Diego State, like I mentioned, Stanford, Cincinnati, and Seton Hall. Both Stanford and Cincinnati are likely out with their early losses in the conference tournament. And then for Seton Hall, I think they most likely have to win the Big East tournament to get in. But if they make it to the Big East championship game somehow, there is a shot. But I think they're going to have to win just to be 100% sure that they are in the field. And for ESPN, how the conferences are breaking down right now, SEC has 10, Big 10 has 9, ACC and Big 12 both with 8. West Coast and Big East both with 3, and then the A-10 and the MAC are both 2 bid leagues as of now. But moving on over to CBS Sports, I wanted to take a look at this bracketology and see what the differences are between them and ESPN. And I want to start off with the first 4 because right now, for the last 4 in, I see Texas, Santa Clara, Missouri, and VCU. So those teams all getting into the play-in games. And Texas and VCU, that makes sense. It's the same with what ESPN has. But then Santa Clara on ESPN was a 10 seed. They have them down to an 11 seed now. And then Missouri as well, looking like they would be going to Dayton with how CBS Sports is projecting it as of now. For the first 4 out, we have SMU. So they would be on the outside looking in. New Mexico and San Diego State and Seton Hall. So New Mexico and San Diego State, both of these teams listed on the bubble in ESPN as well. And it just looks like whoever's winning that game definitely has a shot at getting in. And then Seton Hall, a bit higher on CBS Sports' bracketology, so they may have a shot. One team I'm not seeing right now is Auburn, so it looks like they're completely out of it with that loss to Tennessee. But looking at the bracket, St. Louis, they're listed as a 9 seed on CBS Sports instead of a 10 seed. We got Louisville and Texas Tech, both listed as 5 seeds, where Louisville was listed as a 6 seed on ESPN and Texas Tech was a 4 seed. Vanderbilt up to a 4 seed. You got Miami over here up to a 6 seed as well. So I thought Miami had a shot of getting to a 6 seed, and it looks like for CBS Sports, they're already there. St. Mary's, another team a little further down at a 9 seed. So they were a 7 seed for ESPN, now down to a 9 seed. They're a bit lower on St. John's as well, who is listed as a 6 seed. You got Purdue, that's a bit higher as a 3 seed instead of a 4 seed. Oklahoma already in the field on CBS Sports and not even in the first 4. They're listed as an 11 seed, so on the bubble, but not having to go to Dayton. Then you got Texas A&M, who's at a 10 seed, which is something that I was surprised by ESPN. They didn't have them there. And then Miami, Ohio, actually listed as a 10 seed on CBS Sports, so still on the bubble, but not going to Dayton. And then going a bit further down, we can look at our larger bubble picture, and this is where we see Auburn as another team on the bubble. You got Auburn, California, Indiana, New Mexico, SMU, San Diego State, Seton Hall, and Stanford. So these are all the teams on the bubble but currently outside the field. And for teams like Auburn, California, Indiana, and Stanford, they would probably be the next 4 out section, but right now they're all out of their conference tournaments. So for CBS Sports, these teams have no shot of making it into the tournament. And then as I mentioned, teams like New Mexico, San Diego State, and Seton Hall all have a shot of getting in. They just have to win their games and possibly win their conference tournaments. And then lastly, I want to take a look at Bracket Matrix, which combines a ton of different bracketologist brackets and puts them together to get a consensus bracket of what it would be looking like right now. So for Bracket Matrix, obviously we have Duke, Michigan, and Arizona all as 1 seeds, but Florida looks like almost a unanimous 1 seed over Connecticut. It looks like maybe only 1 or 2 people have UConn still as a 1 seed over the Gators. Then scrolling down a little bit, Illinois is a 2 seed as well as Michigan State. They're tied with their average seed at 2.07. And personally, I would have Michigan State higher than Illinois just because the head-to-head. But both these teams seem like they're the 2 seed, and that knocks Iowa State down to a 3 seed. And they're pretty clearly a 3 seed for most right now, it seems. Nebraska, 3 seed. Gonzaga and Purdue both listed as 3 seeds on Bracket Matrix, and they look like they're just over Alabama and Virginia, which we have seen as a 3 seed in some of the other sites we've taken a look at. Kansas and Texas Tech both still look like 4 seeds to me. Vanderbilt is a 5 seed as of now, but they seem like the most likely team that could jump to a 4 seed. Maybe Arkansas as well, especially if they were able to win the SEC tournament. I think the Razorbacks have a shot of getting there also. You got St. John's clearly as a 5 seed. North Carolina is the last 5 seed, surprisingly, over Tennessee. I personally have North Carolina as a 6 seed right now, but for the consensus of people, they're just above the Volunteers. Then we got Wisconsin, Louisville, and BYU as our other 6 seeds. And BYU right now the last 6 seed, but feels like Miami to me is the only team that can catch BYU and force them down to the 7 line, with Miami getting to that 6 seed line. But maybe Kentucky could do that if they were able to go on a bit of a run in the SEC tournament as well. 7 seeds is Kentucky and Miami. Like I mentioned, both of these teams have a shot to move up. You got St. Mary's and Villanova, both teams that are out, and I actually would have them a bit lower in my bracket. But the 8 and 9 seeds right now feel pretty safe and pretty set, but could have a little movement. Maybe some of them get to the 7 line or some of them drop to the 10. But right now, all these teams feel really safe to me. And Ohio State is a team that I'm looking at. Even if they get in that 8-9 matchup, I think they would be a tough matchup for just about any 1 seed with how they're playing right now. So watch out for the Buckeyes. St. Louis is listed as a 9 seed. I've seen them as a 10 seed on some of the other bracket sites as well. But I wonder if that would change if they were able to win their conference tournament, but we'll have to see. But then Miami, Ohio is listed as the last 10 seed on Bracket Matrix, and that's even with the loss in their conference tournament. And then for our bubble, it's Missouri, Santa Clara, Texas, SMU, VCU. So a lot of the same teams that we've been seeing. Missouri looks to be a little safer on this one and missing Dayton entirely. In CBS Sports, obviously, they were there in that first 4. Then Santa Clara. This is one of the lowest spots we have seen the Broncos at compared to ESPN and CBS Sports, so they might not be as safe as we once thought. Then Texas and VCU seem to be in the first 4 as a consensus right now, but those 2 teams feel like the ones that could be knocked out, as well as SMU, who is listed as the last team in some and out of others. But then South Florida also as an 11 seed. I truly think if South Florida somehow doesn't win the American, but they make it to the championship game, they're going to be inserted into the bubble picture because that's how strong this team has been this season. And then going down and looking at the teams who are at larges, but probably not in the field, we have the same teams like Auburn and Indiana, New Mexico and San Diego State. As I mentioned, they play each other, so they have a shot to play themselves in. Boise State, they're out after that bad loss in the Mountain West tournament. Cincinnati is out after they blew it against UCF. Same with Virginia Tech, who should have won their game in the ACC tournament, but we're not able to get it done. And then Oklahoma, I'm a bit surprised that they only have one vote right now to be in the bracket, but that will probably change with the next update to Bracket Matrix. But overall, with how this bubble has performed so poorly in their conference tournaments, it's definitely shrunk. And I think there's only a few teams left that could play themselves into the bracket, but we'll just have to wait and see. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on this bracketology update. Who do you think from the bubble is going to be in, and who do you think is going to be out? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more March Madness content, and I'll see you in the next one.